Hey guys, tonight we're telling a story no one wants to hear, about a prophet who used to speak with fire, and then vanished when no one cared to listen. No miracles, no audience, just a man in the sand, waiting for God to say something, anything, before he broke. This is the prophet who starved in the desert, because no one believed him. And it doesn't start with glory. It starts with silence. Now get comfortable. Let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You run because she said your name. Not loud, not cruel, just knowing. Like a thread pulled loose in the lining of your skin. Jezebel. You hadn't seen her since the fire. Since the night the walls went up, the files were torched, and the floor in room 7 split open like a wound. Everyone said she died. But you didn't believe it then. And now you know she didn't. You don't remember walking out of the lecture hall. Don't remember shoving past the crowd of archivists. Don't remember the way someone called after you. Maybe security. Maybe someone who saw what she slipped into your coat pocket. Only the cold and her voice. It wasn't a threat, not exactly. Just a sentence. A calm, terrible sentence. Run if you still know how. You do. Your feet pound against the old courtyard stones, loose gravel sliding under your heels. The night is colder than it should be. Wind howls through the arcades, but the trees don't move. You realize dimly that the bells aren't ringing. Not the tower clock, not the ones below. You run faster, past the fountain where they found the teeth, past the shuttered chapel where no light ever reaches the third window, past the stone plaque no one admits to translating, but you did, or thought you did. Your lungs burn, your breath turns to vapor. Somewhere far behind you, a door slams. You don't look back, because you know what she'll look like if you do. You know the whiteness of her eyes, the wrongness of the pupils, the way her hands are never the same length twice. You remember the experiments, half memories, half dreams. When they made her read the same passage over and over until the walls bled through the paint. You were told it was performance. You wanted it to be performance. That was safer. You reach the fence. Of course it's locked. Of course it is. But your hands find the break in the chain. It's still there, rusted open from the night you cut it 3 years ago, when you swore you'd never come back. You squeeze through. The edge of the metal snags your coat. You leave it behind. You run across the abandoned lot where the old labs once stood. You told yourself they were demolished, but you see now, they weren't. Just buried, swallowed, hidden beneath gravel and tar and perfectly forgettable landscaping. And now she's not behind you. She's ahead, not walking, not waiting, just existing, like fog, like rot. You feel it in your jaw, in your teeth. You stop. You're not sure if you stopped yourself or if something else did. A sodium light buzzes overhead, the only one still working in this part of the grounds. You're standing in the very place they used to take the children when they failed the attention tests, where they said they were recalibrated. You remember the word because she whispered it once, right before the window shattered. A low hum rises from the ground, not loud, not angry, just low, mechanical, like something remembering its own purpose. You realize your hands are shaking. You look down. The envelope she left in your coat is in your fingers. You don't remember taking it out. Inside, something flat. A key card. A photo. You don't open it. Because you hear her behind you now. Closer than she should be. Closer than possible. You turn your head. Just enough enough to see the edge of her reflection in the glass door beside you. But there's no building there. Only dark. Only your name. And her mouth, not moving, but still speaking. You leave your servant behind. Not with malice. Not even with regret. Just a silence too sharp to carry anyone else. He had followed you longer than anyone should have. Through burned towns and nameless borders. Through rooms where the wallpaper curled like skin. And through caves that whispered scripture in reverse. He never asked where you were going, only what it meant. You never answered. And now you are alone again. Not by fate, by choice. He'd fallen asleep beside the last fire, curled like a dog near the embers, hands still clutched around the book you told him not to open. The one with no spine. The one that smells like cedar when it lies and ash when it tells the truth. You stood over him for a while, watching the red glow fade from his cheeks. A single coal pulsed like a heartbeat in the ashes. Then nothing. He never stirred when you stood. Not when you shouldered the satchel. Not when you took the map from his coat and folded it into the pages of your own. Not even when you whispered the old word. The one that splits dreams from memory. That breaks whatever tethers might have held him to your path. He'll wake with no memory of you. Just a soreness in the soles of his feet. A dull ache where trust used to be. It's better this way. A prophet who can't protect anyone doesn't deserve to be followed. You walk until the stars vanish, until the horizon bleeds, until the air smells like copper and the road forgets how to curve. The terrain changes, though the maps don't say so. Old stones poke from the soil like teeth, carved with letters you know but don't dare pronounce. The wind feels intentional. It shifts when you speak aloud, so you stay silent. Ahead, a stone bridge arches over a stream you can't hear. The water moves, but makes no sound. No splash, no ripple. Just motion without consequence, like memory. You step onto the bridge and stop halfway, because someone is waiting at the other end. Not your servant. Someone older, someone barefoot. A woman, maybe. But her features are blurred, as if sketched in haste and never corrected. Her head tilts. Her hands twitch, not in greeting but in rhythm, like she's counting seconds you haven't spent yet. You don't move. She doesn't speak. But you understand. She saw you leave him. Saw you turn your back not just on a man, but on your last audience. Your last chance to be believed, to be interpreted. You are a prophet with no listener, a warning with no ears, a ghost of your own gospel. Still, you walk forward. She doesn't block your path, only watches. And as you pass her, her lips part, not with breath but with tone, a resonance that skips your ears entirely and vibrates in the bones of your chest. One word. You don't know the meaning, but you know what it does. It seals. Not a curse. Not yet. Just a finality. A door closing without a sound. When you reach the far side of the bridge, you look back. She's gone. The stream is gone too. Only the road remains. Narrower now. Hungrier. You walk faster. You walk into the waste. Not because you're called. Not because you're ready. Only because there is nowhere else to go. The path doesn't end. It just forgets itself. Stones fade into sand, grass into ash. The road gives up pretending it ever led somewhere. You keep walking. Your feet blister, first at the heel, then along the sides where your boots split. The skin pulls loose in strips. You don't stop. You try not to look. Pain becomes something else out here, not a warning, but a toll. The sky is too large. It presses down without moving. There are no clouds, only heat, a dry, glassy brightness that turns shadows sharp and wrong. The sun doesn't track, It hovers. It waits. By the second day, you stop marking time. The waist doesn't believe in time. It stretches and folds. It resets things. The horizon flickers, and you realize too late that the ridge you thought you passed hours ago is somehow ahead of you again. You whisper the names of places that once meant safety, cities that still exist on paper, routes traced in red ink. None of it matters. Nothing answers. Only the wind. And even that seems to pause when you speak, like it's listening for a word that would make you edible. You pass trees, or what used to be trees. They're bare, petrified, limbs outstretched like surrender or worship. Every one of them looks like a crucifixion caught mid-breath. Some of them have marks, scratches in bark, cloth tied to limbs, bone offerings at their base. Signs someone came before you, signs they didn't leave whole. One tree has something else, a mouth, not open, just shaped that way, a gnarled knot in the trunk, grinning at chest height. You step around it, you don't drink. Not because you have faith, but because you don't know what the water out here remembers. You saw a pool once near the dead hill, clear as glass, unmoving. A voice in your head said drink, not a command, just suggestion. You kept walking. Now your tongue is cracked. Your lips peel. When you speak, if you speak, the sound feels borrowed, like the waist is rehearsing something through you. You come to a cairn, rocks stacked too carefully to be an accident. 5 high. The top one split. A symbol is etched into its flat side. A loop inside a square, crossed by a diagonal slash. You don't touch it. You've seen it before. On the letter you burned before crossing the fence. On the underside of the coin you woke up with in your pocket. And once, carved into the door of a building that vanished when you turned around. You kneel beside the cairn. Not to pray, just to rest. But the ground vibrates. Subtle, but there. Like a heartbeat buried too deep. You place your hand to the sand. It pulses again. You stand. The air smells like iron now. The wind has teeth. Far ahead, past the warped horizon, you see something rising. A spire. A tower. A suggestion. It flickers when you blink. The waist wants you to believe it's real. Maybe it is. You walk on. You pray to die under a shrub, not dramatically, not with thunder or light, just quietly, like forgetting where you left your name. The shrub is brittle, more bone than branch. It claws out of the sand like something that lost a bet with God. One half of it is dead. The other half only thinks it's alive. You sit beneath it anyway. Not for shade, it offers none, but because it's the only thing that still looks rooted. You whisper the words like you're stealing them. It is enough. Take me. No one answers, but you didn't expect anyone to. Your skin burns, the kind of burn that goes inward. Your lips are split open at the corners. Your nails are cracked and caked with the white powder that used to be dirt. You haven't slept in a day, or 3. You're not sure. The last time you closed your eyes, you woke to the sound of bells that weren't there. You think they're still ringing. Or maybe that's just your pulse. The wind doesn't come out here anymore. Not real wind. Just the breath of something larger than you. Something lying very still and very patient beneath the sand. You felt it last night when you thought you heard the shrub whisper your name, but you didn't move. You were too tired. Now you kneel, hunched beneath its shadowless form, and press your forehead to your knees. You feel small, and it feels right. You remember being told once that prophets should feel small, that surrender is holy. You're not sure you believe that anymore, but the prayer comes anyway. Low, broken. Take me. Something stirs behind your teeth when you say it. A pressure, like a word that doesn't belong to you is trying to crawl out. You bite down. Let the blood taste copper and silence whatever answer was about to speak through your mouth. You don't want that answer. You just want quiet. Just done. Overhead, a buzzard circles. You don't look up. You saw it hours ago when your shadow was still intact. It's not circling you, just the memory of you, waiting for your body to catch up with your intention. You curl tighter. The shrub creaks. You almost laugh. It sounds like it's shivering, like it's afraid. Of what? Of you? Of what's inside you? Of the weight your prayer might carry? Or maybe it's just tired too. The sand shifts, just slightly. Enough that your left foot sinks a half-inch deeper. Enough to make you open your eyes and remember there is no bottom out here. Only layers of forgetting. You think of him, the servant you left behind. His face doesn't come to you. Just the sound of his voice when he asked what the waste meant. You didn't answer, because you thought you knew. Now you know you don't. You close your eyes again, and this time the words don't come. Not because you've lost them, but because they were never yours. You feel something pass through you then. Not warmth, not peace, just a stillness that doesn't need you to move anymore. You lean back against the twisted limbs of the shrub, and you wait. You lie down to die, and no one stops you. There is no final protest, no voice calling your name through the heat, just silence, vast and honest. You curl your body against the side of a dune, where the wind has carved a hollow like a shallow grave. Sand sticks to your skin, clinging to sweat that dried hours ago. Your body is past pain now, past thirst, past needing a reason. You don't close your eyes at first. You just stare, up at a sky too wide, too white. There are no clouds, no stars, just that vast, colorless ceiling, like the inside of a lid you're already beneath. The buzzard is gone. Even it gave up. Your breath is shallow. You can hear it catching, raspy and slow, like wind dragging across stone. Each inhale feels like it costs something you don't have. You let it. You give it everything. Every story you didn't tell. Every name you stopped saying. Every warning you once carried like fire. All of it dissolves in the space between now and never. Sleep comes, not gently, not like rest. It comes the way smoke comes when the roof is already gone, the way frost grows over glass after the fire's out, cold and final and too late. You feel it slide over your limbs like a tide without water. Your fingers twitch, your jaw slackens. Thoughts slow, not into peace, but into static. Fragments loop in your skull, a child's drawing of a door, the word written beneath it, in a language you don't remember learning, the way her eyes looked when she said your name in the wrong voice. You don't resist. You welcome it, like a slow burial, the kind no one witnesses, the kind meant to be erased. You think, this is it, and for a moment the quiet almost feels like kindness, until you hear the voice, not outside, not inside, somewhere just beneath, like breath through a crack in the floorboards. It says nothing at first, just is. A presence without shape, a knowing without form. And then, one word, not your name, not your purpose, just wait. You don't know if it's real, or if your brain, starving of oxygen, is pulling scraps from the vault, but it doesn't matter. Because now the sleep isn't empty anymore. Now it pushes back, like a hand pressed to your chest, holding you down. Not gently, not cruelly, just insistently. You feel your pulse kick. You don't want it to. You were ready. But your body doesn't care what your soul has signed. It remembers something you forgot to forget. Something beneath the waist, older than language. The reason prophets never leave clean bones behind. Your eyes open. Not fully. Just enough to catch a shimmer on the horizon. A shape you don't believe in yet. Not a man, not a god. Just motion. Just direction. Sleep growls in protest. It wants you. Wants to finish. Wants your last thoughts sealed in the sand like a fossil. But the word echoes again. Wait. And so you do. For one more breath. For one more betrayal. For one more truth. You dream of the fire on Mount Carmel. But this time the fire doesn't fall. The sky stays blue, empty, blank as a sealed vault. And you, knees in dust, throat torn from shouting, are left waiting. The altar is there, stones stacked, wood arranged, water poured again and again, until the trench bleeds mud. You remember this part. The confidence, the spectacle, the way the prophets of Baal screamed themselves hoarse on the ridge while you stood still, arms open to the heavens. That was the moment it turned, when you believed you were right. In the dream, the people are watching, but their faces are wrong. They shimmer, blur, as if painted in wet ink. Their mouths move, but their eyes don't. No one blinks, no one breathes, not even the animals. A goat twitches once and then freezes mid-step, like the dream forgot how motion works. And still, no fire. You cry out again. Not the words you said that day. Those are gone, scattered like ash. But something deeper. A noise from your ribs, from your marrow. The kind of sound a man makes when even God feels too far to address. Still nothing. No smoke, no spark. Just the sun, heavy and sterile above you. The kind of light that doesn't burn. It dries, pulls the life out slowly, like salt in a wound. You look up. The sky looks back. Then something shifts. The people begin to laugh. Not loud, not cruel, just steadily, like water dripping from a cracked ceiling. A sound that finds its rhythm and won't stop. Their mouths open wider than mouths should. Their teeth shine too bright. Their shoulders quake in unison. You rise to your feet, dizzy. The altar is gone. No, not gone. Never there. In its place, just stones. Ordinary sun-bleached stones. No scorch marks, no water, no sacrifice, no proof. You turn to find the mountain behind you, but it isn't there, only sand. Stretching forever in all directions. The ridge you stood on becomes a dune. The watching crowd sinks into the dust, their laughter turning to static. Now the sky darkens, not with storm, with shadow. A shape forms overhead. You brace yourself. This is it, you think. Now it comes. But it isn't fire. It's eyes. Thousands, layered like scales, blinking in patterns that echo your old prayers in reverse. And from somewhere beneath them, a voice you can't place, not God, not man, says, "Where is your offering?" You look at your hands. They're empty. No lamb, no bull, no name scrawled in blood, only your fingers raw from digging. You open your mouth to explain, but sand pours out. The laughter returns, closer now, inside you. You fall. But the ground doesn't catch you. There is no ground, just falling, just heatless light and memory bleeding out of sequence. The fire you once called down, playing in reverse. Smoke curling into logs, flames shrinking, wood reassembling itself like time had second thoughts. You land. Not hard, just placed. Like a tool returned to its drawer. And when you look up, the mountain is gone. The fire never fell, and no one remembers your name. You remember the blood on the stones. Not the kind that soaks. Not the kind that spreads. The kind that clings. Blackened in the cracks. Hardened under the sun. The prophets of Baal had screamed. That much is certain. You remember the sound. high and human, thin as birdsong and twice as desperate. They danced with knives. They carved their own names into their skin, not for you, not for spectacle, but because they truly believed someone was listening. And when no one answered, they screamed louder. You remember their eyes, not the madness, the hope, the animal kind, wide and wet and shining with the last flicker of belief. Even as they bled, even as they fell, they looked to the sky like children reaching for a parent who would never arrive. Were you ever different? You want to say yes, but the memory betrays you. You stood on the same stones. You raised your hands the same way. You built your altar with the same trembling fingers. The only difference was this. The fire did fall, but was that justice or just sequence? You told yourself it was righteousness. You told yourself the others were wrong, that their gods were lies, that their deaths were necessary. You told yourself you were chosen, but the blood didn't care who was right. It soaked the same. You kneel now in the waist and press your palm to the sand. It's hot, dry, but it remembers. You can feel it. Beneath the layers, beneath the centuries, it still holds the impression of those stones and the blood between them. You try to pray, but the words curdle. All you can say is their names, the ones you once mocked, the ones you once slaughtered. You speak them like apologies, but they fall like ash. Dry and weightless. They don't stay. They don't stain. Maybe you never meant them to. You remember the moment it happened, when the fire came. You expected heat, expected awe. Instead, you felt emptied, like the fire burned something out of you that never came back. And in that emptiness, you heard it, a whisper, not from the sky, from the stone, from the blood. It asked no question. It offered no comfort. It only echoed, again and again. Was it enough? You never answered. You didn't know how. You fled the mountain, fled the cheers, fled the faces that looked at you like a monument. You told yourself it was fear, that Jezebel's threat chased you into the wilderness. But now, beneath this dead sky, beneath this brittle sun, you know better. You weren't running from her. You were running from them, from what you did, from how close your face came to theirs. You wonder now what would have happened if the fire hadn't fallen, if the silence had lasted one more breath. Would your hands have stayed clean? Would you have joined them? Would that have been mercy? You press your hand deeper into the sand. It doesn't burn. It doesn't forgive. It only holds you there, quiet, unmoving, like another stone among many. The blood is gone now, but the memory isn't. And that's what lingers. Not the fire, not the glory, just the eyes. Your mouth is dry, but you refuse the sky. You could cry out. You don't. The words gather behind your teeth like old dust, useless, heavy, familiar, a prayer half-formed, a name half-remembered. They burn your throat more than the heat ever did. The sky above you is a wound that won't close, too bright, too open. It stares back without blinking, without kindness. You've seen it change color for other men, saw it rip open for fire, split for rain, fold for voice, but never for you. Not really, so you keep your mouth shut. Silence is cleaner than disappointment. There's a rhythm now to your footsteps, a drag, a catch, a stagger. The blister on your heel burst this morning. You didn't stop, didn't bandage it, just folded it into the rhythm. Pain is quieter when it's allowed to stay. The sun is wrong again, too high, too still. It hasn't moved since you left the last cairn. Or maybe time has stopped crawling forward and started circling around you. A loop of waiting, a ritual of drought. You saw a shadow move 2 dunes ago, long, slow, deliberate, not an animal, not wind. You didn't follow. You don't trust signs anymore. The sky offers them too freely. Once, you asked it for fire. It gave you fire. Once, you asked it for death. It gave you sleep. Now, you ask nothing, and it gives you silence. Like a mirror. There's a stone in your boot. It's been there since morning. You don't remove it. It's easier to curse the stone than the road. It's smaller, containable. Like your voice. You reach a rise. The waste stretches below you like a forgotten thought. One path vanishes into shimmering heat. The other coils toward a black ridge, sharp, broken, promising shade that probably isn't real. You stand between them. The wind nudges at your back, not urging, testing. You think about saying something, just one word, just to see if it matters. But your tongue is cracked, and the silence is familiar now. You learned it in caves, learned it in sanctuaries, in the long pause after the miracles, when the people turn to you not with joy, but with questions. Hungry ones, needy ones, the kind that made you want to lie. So you stopped answering, and eventually, they stopped asking. Now only the sky watches you, and even it has learned not to expect much. You take the ridge path, not because it looks right, but because it's narrow. Because it looks like it wasn't meant for anyone else. The sun flickers once behind a passing smear of cloud. A mercy, or a trick. You don't thank it. You don't curse it either. There are no pacts between you anymore. You walk on in silence, dry-mouthed, steady. And if the sky begins to cry out behind you, you do not turn around. The shade moves, but you don't. You've stopped walking, not from pain, not from doubt, just because the moment told you to. The kind of stillness that feels older than decision. Your feet are planted in sand that remembers fire. Beneath it, old bones. Bones you never buried. Bones you didn't make but still feel responsible for. The sky above is flat and white, burning at the edges. But it's not the heat that holds you in place. It's the shadow, not your own. That one still obeys. It stretches long and thin beside you, following the arc of the sun. But there's another, one that doesn't belong. It crept in behind you an hour ago, or a lifetime, a sliver of shade where there should be none, where no rock stands, no tree grows, just a darkness too straight to be natural, too quiet to be wind. You didn't turn to look. You don't. The sun moves overhead, slow as judgment. You feel it shifting, drawing a line along your back, down your spine, across your legs, measuring you, marking your height, as if it's preparing a space for you beneath the surface. Not a bed, a trench. You stay still. Your mouth doesn't open, not anymore. Your tongue is thick. The taste in your mouth is mineral, like coin, like metal long buried and brought back too late. Something buzzes faintly in your ears, not sound, pressure, a hum that doesn't belong in the natural world. The same hum you heard in the archive, before room 7 opened, before the tape rewound on its own. You know better than to respond. The shade behind you grows longer, but there's no source, no figure casting it. It moves without reason, creeping along the dunes like a thought that wasn't yours. You think for a moment of turning around. But what if it's shaped like you? What if it is you, the self you shed, the one that believed? Your throat tightens, not from fear, from memory. You once stood on a mountain and called down fire. You once outran horses, carried rain in your voice, split rivers by breath alone. You were the warning, the answer, the one who knew what to say when everyone else was afraid. But not now. Now the sky is indifferent, and the sun carves you like stone. You feel your knees ache, your shoulders slope, your shadow stretches thinner, your breath slows, shallow and even, as if matching the rhythm of something not quite alive. You don't move, not yet, maybe never. You imagine the grave they're drawing, neat edges, shallow, not for burial, just for keeping, a record, a remnant, a way to say someone stood here once. The wind doesn't touch you. It skims past, careful not to interrupt. The silence is absolute. Not a single insect, not a whisper in the dunes, only the sun, only the shade, and whatever's watching from behind it. You don't speak, because if you do, it might answer. The flies begin to gather, first one, then three, then a sound like static, soft and near. They come from nowhere, born out of the heat, carried on air too thin for breath. They land on your lips, your eyelid, the open split on your knuckle. You don't move. You are no longer a man, just a thing in the dust, a shape that once held intention, now just an outline, collapsing slowly. Even death is slow here. The sun doesn't kill you, it preserves, turns flesh to parchment, turns muscle to leather. It waits for the spirit to give up before it lets the body follow. You thought you'd die with flame, with fury, with vision. You thought the end would be thunder or silence, or at least clarity. Instead, flies. One crawls across your ear, another into your mouth. You do not flinch. Your breath is shallow now, not quite sleep, not quite surrender. The world narrows, not from darkness, but white. A light so full it erases depth, makes everything equal, stone, sand, bone. You are all of them now. A whisper of salt in a landscape that forgot the word for water. Time folds in on itself. You remember the brook, cool, hidden. You remember cupping water in your hands and letting it spill between your fingers just to hear the sound. You remember the voice that asked, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" You didn't answer then. You couldn't. You still don't know. The flies don't care. They treat you the same as any other warm surface, any other promise of rot. They don't ask what you were, only what's left. They are honest in a way prophecy never was. One settles in your eye. You let it. You are past protest, past prayer. You wanted God to take you, but God does not come here. Only the flies, only the heat, only the long, slow unraveling of what was once a man who stood on mountains and split the sky with his voice. Now you're just a husk, a story half told, a warning no one listened to. Something twitches near your leg. Not you. Too late for that. A beetle? A lizard? It doesn't matter. The waste is hungry, and you are soft. The sun inches lower. Not enough to cool. Just enough to make your shadow stretch. It drags behind you like a leash, like a memory too stubborn to release you. You feel it. The moment your name starts to fade, not from the world, from yourself. The syllables grow slippery, foreign. You try to hold them, even silently, but they slide out of reach. You're almost free, almost gone. And then the wind shifts, not much, just a curl of air bending around your broken shape, and the flies scatter, not in fear, in recognition, as if something older has entered the room. You don't raise your head, can't, but you know something is watching, not the sky, not the shade, something else, something that has waited for the moment when even the flies give you up. It stands beside you, wordless, weightless, and it does not offer water. It does not offer rest. It waits for you to remember what you are. You hear nothing but your own breath, and even that sounds borrowed, rattling in and out of you like wind through a cracked jar, shallow, mechanical, performed, not lived. The kind of breath that belongs to a thing that doesn't know it's alive anymore. The waste is completely still. The flies have gone. The sun has faded behind the ridge, but the heat clings to the sand like memory, radiating not warmth, but exhaustion. It breathes with you, or through you, or maybe instead of you. The silence is absolute, a cathedral kind, pressed tight around the bones of the world. You shift, just enough for your shoulder to creak. The motion costs. Sand falls off you like ash. You're not sure how long you've been lying here. Hours? A day? Time doesn't mean anything unless someone is counting. No one is. You focus on your breathing. It comes ragged now, thin, like something siphoned from elsewhere. You don't feel it in your chest. You feel it in your teeth, in your temples, in your ears. A dry scrape in your throat with each inhale, like you're stealing it from another version of yourself. One that still walks, still speaks, still believes. But not this one. Not the man who ran, who lay under the shrub, who asked for death with a voice that didn't echo. That voice is gone now. All that's left is the breath and the waiting. The sky bruises purple overhead. Stars blink on one by one, not out of ceremony, but necessity. You don't lift your head to see them. You don't need to. You know their names. Once you told stories about them, drew lines between them and called it prophecy. Now they just look back, unimpressed, unchanged. You wonder if this is what it means to be forgotten, not to be erased, but to remain still while the world shifts around you. You, a figure in the dust, half covered, half remembered, breathing someone else's air. You think you hear footsteps. You don't. You want to. But the silence is honest, more honest than you've ever been. There is no audience, no adversary, just you, and the sound of your own lungs pretending they still matter. You close your eyes, not to sleep, to listen. The breath continues. It shouldn't. You feel your pulse, sluggish behind your eyes. It shouldn't. You are too dry, too hollow, too still. And yet, you remain. Your body, for reasons it won't explain, chooses again and again not to stop. And the breath goes on, measured, patient, as though something inside you has not given up, as though something is waiting for you to give permission. You don't. You don't know why, but you don't. The silence thickens, heavy, pressing, and still. The breath, like a thread tying you to something unseen, something you no longer believe in, but that, somehow, still believes in you. You are not afraid of dying, only of meaning nothing. The death itself, fine. You made peace with that a long time ago, in caves, in storms, in the lull between plagues and promises. You knew your end wouldn't be clean, that prophets don't retire. They vanish. They decay into rumor, into footnotes, into children's questions no one answers anymore. But it was supposed to matter. That's the part that won't settle. If no one believed you, did any of it matter? The fire, the altar, the voice in the whirlwind. What were they for if no one remembers why they happened? Your bones ache. Your breath slows. The taste in your mouth is copper and dust. You've forgotten the last time someone said your name without fear, or doubt, or that awful, piteous tone people use when they speak to the very tired. You lie still in the sand, cradled by a land that never wanted you, under a sky that no longer answers. You don't pray. Not anymore. Not because you're angry, because you're tired. Tired of the silence, tired of the riddles, tired of bearing a truth too heavy to carry and too quiet to be heard. What if they were right? The ones who smiled when you wept, the ones who called you mad while their gods bled out behind them. What if they were right not to follow, not to listen, What if your words were just noise? What if your victories were luck? What if Jezebel saw it before you did? What if the fire didn't fall because you were faithful, but because something else wanted it to? You roll onto your side. The movement scrapes your ribs against the stone beneath the sand. Sharp, small, but it reminds you, you are still here. You still take up space. Barely. A gnat lands near your eye. You don't blink. The night wind shifts and you taste ash, not memory, not metaphor. Real ash. Something burning. Far away or not far enough. It doesn't matter. You were always going to be misunderstood. That was part of the call. But you thought there'd be something left, a story, a relic, a single sentence carved into someone else's breath. Instead, you were becoming an absence, not a martyr, not a legend, just an echo. You press your fingers into the dirt, not to rise, just to feel it, to remind yourself that you touched this world, that your feet cracked this ground, that your shadow stretched across its ridges and its rivers, and once, the sky bent to your voice. You wonder if the ground remembers, if the sand holds the shape of your passage like a sheet holds a dreamer's imprint. You wonder if that's enough. The silence presses in again, and something in you exhales, not in despair, in release. It might not have mattered, but you were there. You stood on the mountain. You poured the water. You raised your hands. You believed. And maybe that belief is the only part that ever counted, even if no one else remembers, even if your name fades, even if your words are scattered by wind and swallowed by stone. You still meant them, and maybe that's enough. You dream of ravens that do not come. The sky is empty, bleached, high and wrong. You lie on your back, eyes cracked open just enough to see them. Not birds exactly, but their absence, a shape of shadow against light. Once they brought meat. Once they found you by the brook, their wings cutting low over the hills, their beaks stained red with providence. Now, only silence. Now, only circling. You try not to watch them. You know they're not real. Or if they are not yours. These are not the messengers. These are not the chosen. These are the ones that come after, the ones that wait. They do not land. They do not call. They just turn and turn and turn. You blink. Slowly. The dream hasn't ended yet, but it's fraying at the edges. Color leaks from it. Time skips. One moment you're lying on warm stone. The next, cold grass. Then the stone again. Then nothing. You're not sure if your eyes are open. You remember the first time they came. Back when the drought still had teeth, and the brook still whispered to the roots of trees. Back when your hands weren't shaking and your name still had weight. You didn't ask for them. They just came, carried by something older than choice. Each morning they arrived, black feathers against gold dawn. They never spoke. They never changed course. They only delivered. You told yourself it was enough. You told yourself you were seen. Now, you tell yourself nothing. The ravens circle. You wonder how long before they forget what they're waiting for. You close your eyes again, not to rest, to retreat. You search for the brook in your mind, its curve, its voice. You try to rebuild it, rock by rock, with memory alone. But the water is wrong. It runs uphill. It runs away. You smell dust. You smell blood. You open your mouth and taste ash. Still, no birds, only shadows in orbit. You think about crying out. You don't. You've already named this silence, already shaken your fists beneath this sky, already watched the heavens stay closed. You know what it means when they do not come. It means the season has ended. It means the story has shifted. It means whatever fed you has withdrawn, not in anger, in completion. You are not the prophet by the brook anymore. You are the dream of him, the bones of him, and the ravens, if they still fly, are carrying food to someone else now, someone whose mouth still speaks, whose shadow still stretches when they rise in the morning. You lie still. The circling stops. The sky swells, and something colder than night slips through your ribs. You are not afraid, just hungry, but not for food, not anymore, for purpose, for the sound of wings, for the feeling of being chosen, even once, even again. You smell bread, but it isn't real. It comes on the wind, soft, warm, impossible, a sweetness at the edge of the heat, where there should be only dust and the bitter taste of thirst. You stop breathing for a moment just to test it, and there it is again. Bread, fresh, leavened, the kind she used to make on the seventh day, her hands dusted in flour, her sleeves pushed back to the elbow, the fire low and stubborn. You remember the creak of the oven door, the way she'd tap the side of the loaf to check if it was hollow, the sound, the smell, the way she'd glance over her shoulder, not smiling, not speaking, just watching to see if you'd ask for a piece before it cooled. You see it now, the fire, the stones of the hearth, the pot hanging just slightly crooked from its chain, her back turned, the shape of her shoulder, the braid wrapped tight around her head. You blink, but the image doesn't vanish. It wavers like heat rising from the sand, but it stays. You know it's not real. She's been gone for decades. You buried her yourself, in soil that cracked at the surface, where the trees had long since died and no birds circled above. You carved her name into a piece of limestone, left it standing even after you knew the wind would take it down. But here she is, not young, not old, just as you remember her, turning the loaf over in her hands, setting it down to cool, a flick of her fingers across the edge of the table, the small sigh she always gave after kneeling at the fire, half exhaustion, half contentment. She doesn't look at you. She doesn't need to. You know this isn't a vision. It's memory, or something using memory to keep you soft, to keep you still, to keep you from finishing whatever it is you began when you stepped into this place. The smell thickens. It shouldn't. That's not how hallucination works. That's not how memory lingers. But you can taste it now, on your tongue, in the back of your throat. Your stomach tightens. You haven't eaten in days. You kneel slowly, one hand on the sand. It feels cold. The sun is still up, but the warmth has drained. The fire in your mind crackles louder. You see the shadow of her arm reach for a second loaf. 2. There were always 2. 1 for the day, 1 for the stranger. You speak before you know you're speaking. Just a word. Mother. And everything stops. The fire, the motion, the smell. She freezes mid-step, still facing away. And then, without turning, without sound, she vanishes. Not all at once. Like breath, like fog, like something too fragile to keep form once it's been named. You're alone again. No bread, no fire. Just the echo of something that almost fed you. You sit in the silence. Let it wash over you. Let it take from you. Memory is cruel in that way. It gives you just enough to remember what you've lost, and then it waits for you to ask for it back. You weep, but only inwardly. No tears come. No sound leaves your mouth. Your face remains still, cracked with salt, stiff with sun, but beneath it, something breaks. Not once, not suddenly. Over and over, in quiet folds. Your soul screams into its own ribcage, like a voice trapped in a room with no door, pounding on walls made of bone and memory. You feel it clawing upward, trying to rise, trying to reach the throat, the tongue, the sky. But there's no sky anymore, just light, and the ache that comes with remembering too much at once. You sit with your arms around your knees, back pressed against a stone that doesn't remember you. The wind has dropped, the heat is merciful, and still, you weep, not with tears, with knowing that it is too late to undo anything, that every word you said, every fire you called, every name you spoke on behalf of someone else's will is still out there, echoing in places that will never send the echo back. You were heard, but not understood. You were followed, but not believed. And now you sit in silence, in the middle of the story's bones, trying to name the feeling that has no word. Grief, number not sharp enough. Regret, number too clean. It is something slower, something that hums beneath the skin like fever. You try to breathe around it, to make space for the ache, but your chest is a cage, tight, locked from the inside. You lean your head back against the stone and stare up. The stars are beginning to show, distant, dim, indifferent. You used to name them, trace constellations, find comfort in their arrangement. Now they blur together. Now they feel like witnesses, watching, recording, not intervening. You think of the mountain, the crowd, the moment the fire came. You thought it would fix things, that it would end the doubt, that the flame would draw a line so clear no one could ever cross it again. But they did. They always do. And you were left carrying the line alone. That's what you're weeping for. Not your body, not your pain, but the weight of being right and still being left. The scream inside you pushes again. Your lips part, but no noise escapes. You want to tear something, not the robe, not the skin, something beneath that, something that holds the voice down, that swallows the howl before it touches air. You want release. You want an answer. You want a crack in the silence wide enough to slip through. But the night stays whole. The wind holds its breath, and the stars do not blink. So you sit, face dry, voice swallowed, soul howling into itself again and again, like a prayer turned inward, like something that still believes, despite everything, that someone might still be listening. A hand touches you, and you almost hit it. Your arm twitches, what's left of instinct rising through the fog, sharp and sudden, like a blade drawn too late. But your muscles are slow now, brittle. The gesture doesn't make it past your shoulder. The swing dies in your bones before it can become motion. Still, the spark was there. Survival, the ghost of it. A buried nerve you thought the desert had finally burned out of you. It's not fear that moves you. It's memory. Something brushing your skin when nothing should be close. Something warm in a world that has been nothing but ash and silence. Something human, or pretending to be. You open your eyes. The stars are spinning. The horizon is wrong. Your body feels rearranged, like someone moved the landscape around you while you slept without sleeping. The hand remains, resting lightly on your shoulder, not gripping, not pulling, just there, steady, real. You don't look at it. You're afraid of what it might belong to. An angel, a man, a mistake. You stare at the sand, at your own hand, limp in your lap, covered in dust, cracked at the knuckles, still curled like it was holding something long since dropped. The touch doesn't speak, doesn't move, but it says something anyway. It says, "You are not dead." You wish it hadn't said that, because you don't know if you believe it. And if it's true, then something worse is coming. Something after the waiting, after the silence, after the unraveling. The world doesn't let prophets rest. It drags them back, even when there's nothing left of them but breath. Your throat tightens. You want to ask a question. Just one. Simple. Why now? But your tongue sticks. Your voice doesn't rise, so instead you let your head tilt, just enough to glimpse the shape beside you. Not a soldier, not a stranger. A face, worn, dust-streaked, eyes that reflect too much. He doesn't speak, just kneels there, his hand still on your shoulder. And you realize he's not saving you. He doesn't think you need saving. He's just there. And that's worse, because it means you've already passed the point of rescue. You've already become something to sit beside, not something to carry. A monument to sorrow. A story no longer told aloud. Your lips crack as you draw a breath. You almost say your name, but you don't, because you're not sure which one to use. The one they gave you before the fire? The one the children shouted after you in the marketplace? The one the ravens forgot? None of them fit anymore. So you let the name stay buried. You let the hand remain. And for one long moment, you sit in the quiet, two shadows slumped against a stone that has never spoken. Your body hums with that almost strike, that flicker of survival, that final refusal to go completely still. It fades. The instinct passes. The world doesn't change, but your shoulder remembers, and the hand does not pull away. The angel doesn't speak, not yet. It kneels beside you in the sand, still as stone, the kind of stillness that doesn't belong to life. The hand on your shoulder hasn't moved. The touch is light, but it anchors you, as if to say, don't stand, not yet. Something is watching. You don't look at it directly, you can't. Your eyes drift just past its form, skimming the outline, trying to assemble meaning from what refuses to hold shape. It's not a vision, not a man. It's something else. The robe isn't fabric. It shifts like breath, like thought. Not bright, not dark, just there, as if light had learned how to drape itself over emptiness. No wings, no flame, no sword, only presence. Your chest tightens, not from fear, from recognition. Something deep in your blood folds itself inward, curling toward bone. The part of you that once called down fire, the part that believed it was chosen, shies away now. You are not clean. You are not holy. You are seen. That's the terror. The angel doesn't need your name. It doesn't need your history. It has them. You feel it, humming in the silence between you. It knows the sound of your first cry, the weight of the blade you once raised, the number of times you wished you hadn't been born. Still, it does not speak. It waits. And somehow that's worse, because if it hasn't spoken, it means the verdict hasn't come. You glance down at your hands, cracked, curled, shaking. Your breath stutters in your throat. You want to fold in on yourself, to shrink, but you stay sitting, back against the stone. Sand pooling at your hips. You try to speak first, to ask something, anything. But the words rot in your mouth. There's no language for what this is. Nothing in all your years of prophecy, of thunder and oil and torn veils, that ever prepared you for this. The angel tilts its head, not mechanically, not kindly, just deliberately. And in that movement, you feel your life pulled apart in slow reverse. Every choice, every hour, every lie you told yourself to survive the silence of God, all of it held in the space between that gesture and the next. It sees the rot. It does not flinch. That is mercy, or something colder. The wind rises, a breath that doesn't belong to weather. The dunes sigh, the sky hums, and still, The angel kneels, silent, patient. You think absurdly of your servant, his quiet questions, his shadow behind yours, how you left him at the base of the road without a word. Does the angel remember that too? Does it hold it? Will it speak it aloud? You brace for sound, for fire, for judgment. None comes, only silence, only waiting, and the unbearable truth that maybe this isn't the end, maybe this is the middle, maybe the fire didn't fall on Mount Carmel because of your faith, but in spite of it. The hand on your shoulder presses just slightly, enough to say, "You are not done." And then the angel stands. There is bread, there is water, there is stillness. You don't know where they came from. One moment, just sand and silence. The next, a flat stone beside you holds a loaf, dark and cracked, steam still rising from the crust. Beside it, a clay cup filled to the lip with clear water. No movement, no sound, just provision. Impossible, unearned. The angel is gone. No wind to mark its leaving. No light, just absence, deep and clean. And now, this. You stare at the bread for a long time. The smell of it is warm, familiar, wrong. It reminds you of things you were not strong enough to protect. Of tables, of hands, of grace passed down through generations that broke apart before they reached yours. You reach for it slowly. Your fingers tremble. You eat like you're stealing from someone holier. Not because anyone told you to, but because it feels like theft. You, the man who wanted to die beneath a shrub. You, the mouth that would not pray. You, the prophet with no one left to believe him. Now here, in the dust, breaking sacred bread like it still matters. The crust scrapes your cracked lips. The inside is soft, dense, real. It sits heavy on your tongue before you force yourself to swallow. You take a second bite. The water waits. You look at it like it might vanish the moment you touch it. You almost expect it to tip over, to soak into the sand like every other gift you've wasted. But it doesn't. You lift it with both hands, like an offering, and drink. It hurts. At first, cold on raw flesh. The shock of it sears down your throat like light in darkness. You cough. You drink again, then again. The cup empties. The world does not end. You sit in the stillness, unsure what part of you should speak. Your mind is quiet, not peaceful, hollow. The kind of silence that comes after weeping, after screaming, when even the echoes give up. You think of the mountain, the fire, the voice that followed. You think of how far you've fallen since then, how many nights you cursed what once lifted you, how many days you spent chasing shadows because they felt more honest than light. And yet here is bread, here is water, not as reward, not as sign, just given. You rest your back against the stone. You feel the food settle in your gut, heavy and real. You exhale, and for the first time in days, the breath doesn't scrape. You wonder if the angel will come back. You wonder if it ever left. You glance at the place where it knelt. The sand is undisturbed, no prints, no burn mark, just ordinary earth, quiet and blank. You look up. The stars are clearer now. You don't trace them. You just let them watch. Let them witness the man who thought himself alone, still breathing, still fed, still here. The journey is too great for you. The only words spoken, gentle and cruel. You don't know when the voice arrived. It wasn't there when you ate, not when you drank, not when you sat with your back against the stone, eyes closed, listening to the slow beat of your own recovery. But now it speaks, not from above, not from around, from within, not your voice, but close, too close, like it borrowed your lungs to remind you who they belong to. You don't answer. You don't have to. Because the words are not a question. They are the verdict. They hang in the air like smoke from a fire you didn't light. Familiar. Final. You stay very still. The stars are behind you now. The night has settled into its cold phase, where everything cracks and curls. Your hands rest limp in your lap, calloused palms open like pages. You stare at the dirt between your knees, the crumbs, the faint wet stain where the cup sat. The journey is too great for you. You breathe in. The words were not angry. There was no thunder, no accusation, only a terrible knowing, the kind that empties the lungs and makes even silence feel heavy. You try to disagree. Try to summon the part of you that used to argue with God, the one who stood on ridgelines and called down flame, the one who outran kings, who dared the heavens to speak first. But he's not here. Only you. Worn, federal, exposed, and somehow still not enough. The voice doesn't speak again. It doesn't need to. You understand. This is the moment before the turning, before the mountain, before the cave, before the whisper. You're being told what your bones already know, that the distance between where you are and where you're being asked to go is longer than your strength, that the next step will cost more than you have. And yet, you'll go. Because you were not asked. You were fed. You were touched. You were watched by something that did not blink when you wept into yourself. You shift forward, slowly. Every joint protests. The pain reminds you that you're alive, that you've eaten, that your breath is still yours for now. The voice does not stop you. It doesn't comfort you either. It lets you rise, like a man about to drown walking into deeper water, like someone who knows he won't make it, but walks anyway. You wipe the crumbs from your lap. You brush the sand from your knees. You leave the stone behind. And somewhere beneath your ribs, those words repeat. The journey is too great for you, and still, you walk. You walk again, with ash in your throat, not from fire, from memory. It clings to your breath, dry and bitter, the taste of words unsaid and names you no longer speak. Each step is small, measured, not deliberate, necessary, because standing still is not an option anymore. You tried that, tried silence, tried surrender. They didn't take. So you walk. 40 days. No map, no voice. Just the wind and the ache in your legs, and a hunger that never really leaves, no matter how much bread you were given. The landscape offers nothing. No signs, no roads. The ground shifts beneath your feet, stones where sand should be, cracks where the earth once held steady. The sky is a lid, pale, endless, unchanged. No clouds, no ravens, just your shadow, stretched thin and wavering, as if it too is starting to forget what you are. You stop sometimes, not to rest, but to listen. You think maybe you'll hear it again, the whisper of wings, the rustle of robes behind you. But there's only your own breathing, rough, shallow. The ash never clears. You try not to count the days, but the number lives in your ribs, a pulse, a reminder. 40. Like flood, like wilderness, like waiting. You know what it means. You know what it requires. Endurance, not understanding. The silence is not absence. It's instruction. Still, there are moments when the wind shifts or the earth groans in its sleep, where you think you see something ahead. A flicker, a shape, a promise. But it fades before you can name it. You walk anyway, because walking is the only thing that doesn't betray you. You speak once, not loudly, not with purpose. A name, not hers, not his, yours. You whisper it like a confession, like a thread you're afraid to pull. The sound of it catches in your throat. Ash. Always ash. Still you say it again. You must exist. You must still be. Or who is walking? The wind doesn't answer. But something loosens in your chest. Not peace. Something like mercy. You pass through a narrow place. 2 cliffs bowed inward, ribs of a dead mountain. You think maybe this is it. The end. The voice. The fire. But there is no revelation. Only dust. Only the sound of your own sandals grinding stone. You keep walking. Night comes, and with it, cold. You don't light a fire. Not because you can't, because you don't need one. You sit with your back against a rock. You don't sleep, but your eyes close. You dream, maybe, or remember, or both. A cave, a voice, a question. You open your eyes before it's asked. You rise, you walk. The ash doesn't leave you, but neither does the mercy. It walks behind you, quiet, unseen, like a hand you almost forgot was there. You sleep in caves. You talk to no one. The world forgets you. It's easier this way. You leave no fire, no trail, just the faint imprint of a body that didn't stay long. You know how to disappear now, not as a trick, not as a punishment, as a kindness, to them, to yourself. The caves are narrow, cold. You curl your body into their cracks like something returned to the earth, like something too tired to demand space. Stone doesn't ask questions. It doesn't care what you've done. It doesn't whisper prophecies in the middle of the night. It just holds you. When you wake, you listen, not for voices. You've given up on those. You listen for stillness. The sound of nothing happening. That's how you know it's safe to move again. You don't speak aloud anymore, not even to yourself. Your throat is tight, like it forgot how to form anything but breath. When your lips move, they shape silence. The words live in your ribs now, pressed flat, folded small, too sacred to waste. Once you would have shouted, would have burned the air with names, called down fire just to prove you still could. Now, you walk past altars without blinking. Now you let them crumble. You pass through villages sometimes, at a distance. You see the smoke of their meals rising into the dusk, hear the low hum of their voices. You don't stop. They don't see you. You prefer it that way. You are not what they need. You were once, or thought you were. You said things that changed them, or broke them. You can't tell which anymore. All you know is how their eyes looked when the miracles stopped. How they searched your face for something holy and found only sweat. So now you walk past, not out of shame, out of mercy. There are animals in the hills, small ones, silent ones. You watch them sometimes long enough to feel your breathing match theirs, long enough to remember you are still part of something, the land, the ache, the waiting. One night you see a boy gathering stones by a dry riverbed. He doesn't notice you. He hums as he works, stacking the rocks in rows. Not an altar, just a game, just order for the sake of it. You watch him for a long time. You almost speak, almost, but the words stay folded. So you turn and walk. You find another cave, a deeper one. You lie down on the cold floor, arms crossed over your chest like you've seen in tombs. You stare at the ceiling until it stops feeling like stone and starts feeling like sky. You think, this is what it means to outlive your purpose. Not death, not failure, just quiet. No fire, no voice, just stone and breath and a mouth too tired to open. The world forgets you, and you let it. You hear laughter in the dark, and it isn't yours. It starts far off, thin, frayed, like a thread pulled too tight. You freeze where you're crouched, one hand resting on the cool stone just inside the cave mouth. The sound doesn't grow louder. It widens, like it's wrapping around you, echoing off rock, folding itself into the folds of night. You don't move. You've heard voices before, whispers carried on wind that never stirred the dust, singing that seemed to come from beneath the sand. But this is different. This is laughter. Human. Almost. The kind of sound someone makes not because they're amused, but because they've seen too much. Because they're beyond words. Because something inside them cracked and never healed straight. You listen. Your fingers curl against the stone. The desert has voices. You know this. You've known this since the first time you slept beneath a sky so empty it felt like judgment. The land holds memory like bone holds marrow, and when the sun goes down, it speaks. You don't answer it. Not anymore. Not after last time. The laughter swells, then breaks. A gasp, a choke, then silence. You breathe through your nose. Slow, steady. You don't let your pulse quicken. You don't rise to investigate. You've learned the shape of traps that aren't set with teeth, but with familiarity. The desert calls in voices you almost recognize. It mimics. It invites. Sometimes it says your name. Not this time. This time it just laughs. You retreat deeper into the cave. Your shoulder brushes the wall, cool, damp with condensation you didn't expect. You settle onto the stone floor, spine against the wall, knees to your chest. You let the darkness close around you like water. You don't light a fire. You don't speak. You don't dream. But the laughter lingers. It returns just before dawn, quieter now, like it's losing interest, or moving further away, or waiting. You lie still and think of the mountain, not the moment the fire fell, the moment after, when the crowd stopped cheering, when you stood in the smoke with your hands shaking and your mouth dry, and realized no one understood what had just happened, not even you. That was the first time you heard it. The laughter, not out loud, not then, but somewhere behind the sky, like the universe had been holding its breath and finally exhaled with a sound that wasn't joy or cruelty, just exhaustion. That's the laugh you hear now. You press your head back against the stone and close your eyes. You are not afraid. Fear is too sharp for what this is. This is something duller. This is recognition. The desert speaks in riddles. You let it speak. You let it laugh. You stay silent. Because if you answer, if you rise, if you follow, if you let the sound pull you forward, then you become part of it. Then the laughter becomes yours. And you are not ready for that. Not yet. Your feet bleed into the dust. The skin split days ago. You felt it happen, first as heat, then as rawness, then as silence. Now each step leaves a darker print behind you. Damp, deliberate. A trail the desert pretends not to notice. The sandals gave out long before this stretch. Threads worn thin, soles peeled and curled like bark. You kept them for a while, then stopped. The straps bit harder than the road. Now it's just flesh, cracked, soft in the wrong places. You walk anyway, because stopping feels worse. You don't look at your feet. You don't wrap them. You don't count the steps. You let the pain settle into you like an old companion, present but not conversational. The dust accepts the blood without complaint. You try to believe it means something. That pain is a sign. That suffering is a signature. That the chosen must limp. That every prophet walks their path with wounds they do not show. But belief takes effort, and you have so little left. Still, you whisper the thought, not as declaration, as doubt. Still chosen. Maybe. The wind doesn't answer. The sky is pale with heat. Not sunrise, just colorless. The kind of light that strips things bare. Your shadow, when it appears, looks wrong. shorter, hunched, like it's trying to crawl back into your body. You pass a tree with no leaves. It leans. The bark is peeled in spirals, like it tried to shed itself before it died. You know the feeling. The sand turns red behind you. No pattern, just evidence. You wonder if anything will ever grow from it. You think of the mountain again, not the voice, not the fire, just the climb, how your legs screamed, how your lungs betrayed you, how no one saw you until you reached the top, how they listened only after the display, and then turned away before the smoke cleared. You press forward. Each step is an argument, each heel a reminder. You tell yourself the pain proves you're still part of the story, that if it didn't matter, it wouldn't hurt, that the ones he chooses always bleed before they're called again, or before they're discarded. It's hard to tell the difference. Up ahead, a rock juts from the earth. Shade pools on one side. You make your way toward it like a man chasing a rumor. You reach it, collapse against it. Not out of drama, out of gravity. The stone is hot. You let your head rest there anyway. The dust swirls faintly in the air around you, stirred by a wind that doesn't seem to touch anything else. You look down. The blood from your feet has formed a small crescent in the sand, a shape that might be a letter, might be nothing. You don't move. You just breathe. You say the word again, not to the sky, to yourself. Chosen. It doesn't echo, but it doesn't vanish either. It stays in your throat, in your ribs, in the pulsing warmth of your ruined feet. And for now, that's enough. You see a bush that doesn't burn. It's not holy. It's just dead. Dry branches, split bark. Thorns like cracked fingernails, half buried in sand, half tilted by wind. It looks more like a gesture than a plant, like something reaching, or something giving up. But you stop. You stare. Not because it's beautiful, because it's there. The desert has taken so much, rivers, names, time, skin, and left nothing in return, just space, just silence. But now here, a bush. Not burning, not speaking, just existing. Your feet pulse. Blood seeps slowly from between your toes. The prints behind you have faded, claimed by the dust. But the pain remains, not sharp, dull, constant, like a bell rung inside your bones. You want to sit. You don't. You want to look away. You don't. You remember another bush. Long ago, that one burned. It called you by name. It made you take off your sandals. It gave you orders, thundered purpose into your chest, and sent you out to stand before kings. You never burned like it did, but you carried the heat. For a while, you take a step closer. The bush is motionless. Not even the wind bothers it. Just brittle wood, a nest of thorns, the carcass of what was once alive. You half expect something to crackle, to flicker, to glow, but nothing happens. It just waits, and so do you. There is a terrible calm in your stomach, a hush that feels like the moment before the blade. Not dread, not relief, just stillness. You wonder what it would take to set it alight, to make it speak. You have no matches, no voice left. Maybe it knows. Maybe that's why it refuses to burn, because you wouldn't listen this time. Because you no longer kneel for signs. You circle it once. No footprints near the base. Number shade. No water. No angel waiting in the thorns. Just the brittle sound of your own breath. You kneel, finally, not out of reverence, out of weight. Your knees press into the sand. Your fingers reach for the lowest branch. It splinters beneath your touch, dry as bone, hollow. You bring it to your nose. Smell dust. Nothing more. You close your eyes. You try to feel something. Not awe, not fear. Just connection. But there's nothing. No fire. No name. No voice. The silence isn't cruel. It's indifferent. And somehow that cuts deeper. You drop the branch. You sit in the dust. You let the bush stand. You let the sun pass. And still, it does not burn, and you do not rise. You arrive at the mountain and nothing happens. No fire, no thunder, just a rock wall and more silence. It rises out of the dust like something exiled from heaven. Not majestic, not terrible. Just there, massive and unmoved. Its surface is rough and dull, the color of ash after the wind has finished with it. You don't know how you found it. You weren't following a path. There wasn't a sign. But now it looms above you, and you know you're where you were always going. You stop, wait. But the wind doesn't change. The sky doesn't darken. Nothing tears. You press your bleeding hands to your knees and let the weight settle in. 40 days and nights, sand in your mouth, shadows that spoke, sleep you didn't earn. And this is what waits at the end? Not a throne, not a whisper, not even a voice, just rock. You let your pack fall from your shoulder. What little is left tumbles out, a crust of bread gone hard, a sliver of bone you kept for no reason, a broken strap, a torn map whose lines faded long before you stopped reading them. You sit, not in defiance, in exhaustion. The mountain offers no comfort, no crack to crawl into, no ledge to cling to. It just watches, as if it doesn't know who you are, as if it doesn't care. Maybe it doesn't. You touch the stone. It's warm, dry, familiar in the worst way. You ask nothing, because you've learned how silence responds to questions. Still, you think about the stories, about men who came here before you, who wrapped their faces in cloth and covered their eyes and waited for the storm to pass. You think of fire-splitting stone, of a voice that once shaped kings and shattered armies. You think of how it felt to be certain. That's the part that hurts the most, not the feet, not the hunger, not the ache in your bones, but the absence of certainty. You sit with your back to the wall. You breathe dust. You hear your heartbeat behind your ears. You wonder if you'll die here, if they'll find your bones years from now and not know whose they were, if they'll build another story around them, if they'll name you something else. Prophet, madman, ash. You close your eyes. You whisper a name. Not his, yours. It sounds wrong in your mouth, like a question that doesn't have the strength to reach upward, like a stone dropping down a well that doesn't echo. Still, you say it again, and then you wait. For fire, for wind, for voice. But nothing happens. The mountain does not move. The silence does not break. And for the first time, you don't ask it to. You hide in the cave and wait for God to finish ignoring you. It's not fear. It's not shame. It's not even grief anymore. It's resignation. The kind that sinks into your marrow, where even the memory of fire can't reach. You sit with your back to the stone, legs drawn in, arms around your ribs like they're the last thing holding you together. The light outside the cave flickers, but it doesn't touch you. It has no reason to. You've stepped out of the story, quietly, like a servant leaving a room no one noticed he was in. You don't expect him to show. Not anymore. You used to. Every silence felt pregnant. Every gust of wind. Every shift in shadow. Maybe this time. Maybe now. Maybe if you held your breath long enough, he would speak again. But now? Now you just wait for the stillness to settle. You wonder how long he's been ignoring you. If he started after Jezebel, or after the mountain, or if he was never listening in the first place, and you just mistook your own voice for something higher. You lean your head back against the cave wall. The stone is cold. That's something. That's real. Your breath echoes in the dark. Not loud. just enough to remind you you're still here, that something is still moving, even if it doesn't matter. You whisper once, not a prayer, not a challenge, just a question. Why? The word dies in your mouth before it reaches the air. You don't say it again. Outside, the wind picks up. A high sound, hollow and sharp, like the world is being peeled apart. You flinch, just slightly, but don't move. You've heard winds before, loud ones, violent ones. They never meant anything. Then the ground begins to shake. You feel it in your teeth, in your spine. The rock beneath you groans like it remembers the day it was born. Dust sifts down from the ceiling. You curl tighter, arms around your head. But you don't leave. You've seen earthquakes. They don't speak either. The shaking stops. The wind dies. The silence returns, deeper now, heavier. Then, fire. Not near, not far, just present. You don't see it, but you feel the heat crawl toward the entrance. You smell the smoke, not wood. Something older, something holy, but it doesn't come in. It passes, leaves you untouched. You press your forehead to your knees, eyes shut, mouth dry. You know this rhythm. You know what comes next, or what should. But even now, even here, nothing. You are not being tested. You are being left. And somehow that's harder. You shift slightly, bones clicking. You feel the ache in your heels, the dried blood at your toes. You wonder how many days have passed, how many nights you've spent curled like this, in this hollow, waiting for a God who never asked you to. You open your mouth again. But there's nothing left to say, not even take me. You're too tired for endings. You just want stillness. You just want to not want. You press your palm flat to the floor, cold, solid. You anchor yourself to it, and wait, not for God, for the part of you that still believed he might come. The wind shreds the rocks. You stay still. It starts with a sound like splitting fabric, loud and sharp and wrong, the kind of sound that feels physical. It rips through the canyon, catches in the cracks of the mountain, turns stone into dust and dust into knives. You hear boulders crack open like bones. You hear the mountain groan under the weight of its own unraveling. You do not step outside. You do not even rise. You've learned. Not everything loud is holy. Not every shaking is God. You pull your cloak tighter. Sand hisses past the cave mouth in sheets. It gets into your teeth, your ears, your eyes. You don't wipe it away. You let it cling. The wind is strong enough to carry trees, to peel skin. But you are not moved. You don't tremble. You don't run toward the noise the way you used to. You wait, because it's not him. You feel the cave tremble around you, the cold stone suddenly warm from friction, from pressure. A shriek rises from outside, not a voice, not quite, just force, raw and blind and ancient. You think of Sinai, of Horeb, of Carmel, and how much you used to crave this kind of violence, how much you wanted God to prove himself with fire and noise and power, how you thought certainty could be found in spectacle. But that was before the cave, before the long silence, before your own voice started sounding like someone else's echo. Now you sit in the dark, unmoved, while the world is torn apart outside. Because you know better. The wind does not ask questions. The wind does not answer them. It just is. A scream without language. You wait. You wait while the air howls and the stone fractures and the dust turns the sun into a dull red eye above the mouth of the world. You wait until your knees ache and your breath comes shallow and slow. You wait until your heartbeat becomes quieter than the wind's fury. And then, suddenly, it stops. Not fades, stops. like someone let go of the sky. The silence after is thick, full of ringing, the kind of silence that feels like it knows you. You don't move, you don't speak, you don't hope, because it's still not him. You listen, and all you hear is your own breath rasping in your throat. All you feel is the dust caked on your skin, the ache in your joints, the weight in your chest. You shift slightly, just enough to lean back against the wall. You close your eyes, and in that moment, brief, private, almost meaningless, you feel something that could be called peace. Not because you've been answered, because you weren't, and you stayed. The earth shakes. You are unmoved. It begins beneath you, low and slow. Not the sudden crack of judgment, no split in the sky, no cry from heaven, just a groan, deep and steady, like the mountain is waking up with regret in its bones. Pebbles dance near your feet. Dust rises in little spirals. The cave breathes in and out, pulsing with the slow rhythm of things that were never meant to stir. You stay where you are, back against the stone, arms around your knees, eyes open. Not this time either. The last time the earth moved beneath you, you thought it meant something. That God was clearing his throat, that the voice would follow, powerful and clean, cutting through the noise with direction. Go here. Say this. Be still. Now move. But you know better now. Movement isn't meaning. Noise isn't presence. Sometimes the mountain groans just because it's old. Just because it's tired of holding things. The ground rumbles harder. Cracks split along the cave floor. The air fills with grit. You feel the vibration in your spine, your teeth, the old wounds in your legs. Stone dust clings to your face like ash. You don't shield yourself. You don't cry out. You listen. Not for him, just for the silence beneath the shaking. And it's still there, unbroken, calm, clear. You lean your head back against the rock and let the tremor roll through you. It's not painful, just persistent, like a reminder that the world is still capable of noise even when the sky has nothing to say. The earth groans again, louder this time. The kind of sound that used to make you drop to your knees and cover your head. The kind that made people scream, sacrifice, run. You stay seated. You've run enough. You've sacrificed enough. You've shouted enough prayers into chasms that never echoed. Now you just sit, and the mountain shakes. It cracks. It shifts. And still, it does not speak. There is a strange relief in that, a strange comfort in knowing the trembling does not require your interpretation. You are no longer the interpreter. You are no longer the mouth. You are the witness. And even that role grows thin. Eventually, the shaking slows. The cracks stop growing. The stones settle with soft clicks. A small plume of dust curls out of the mouth of the cave and vanishes into the hot, empty air. You exhale. One long breath. No fire, no thunder, no word from beyond. Just rock, just silence. Just your own pulse, quieter now. You don't rise. You don't rush to the cave's edge, searching the horizon for signs. You've learned not to. The world can fall apart outside, but until he speaks, it means nothing. You close your eyes, not to sleep, to listen again, not for the ground, not for the wind, but for the space where something else might still wait. The fire passes. You don't even blink. It rushes through the mouth of the cave like a living thing, fast and full of hunger. Flames snap sideways against the stone, dragging heat and light in a sudden roar that should have made you cover your face, fall to the ground, beg. But you don't move. You just sit, arms around your knees, jaw slack with dust, eyes dry and open and unimpressed. You're too tired to believe in spectacle anymore. The fire dances past you, all brilliance and motion, like it remembers the stories better than you do, like it's trying to convince you it still means something. It lights the cracks in the rock like veins under skin, turns the shadows sharp, forces the cave to speak in flickers. You've seen it all before, and last time he wasn't in it. So this time you don't rise, you don't wrap your face, you don't pray. You just let it burn. Let it scream past you in colors that once stood for promise, for warning, for presence. Now it's just light, just heat, just the sound of the world trying too hard. You feel the hair on your arms singe, feel your skin tighten. The air goes thin, then thick, then thin again. You breathe slowly through your nose, through the pain, through the memory. The cave shakes faintly, not from force, from memory. Like it too has seen this before, like it knows better now. The flames lick the entrance and curl back into the dusk, gone as fast as they came. No voice in the fire, no name, no command. Just silence, again, still. You shift your weight slightly, the stone warm beneath you now, heated by something that couldn't even leave a scar. Once, fire meant covenant. Now it means delay. Once it made you fall on your face and cry out for meaning. Now it makes you count your breath. 1, 2, 3. Still here. Still nothing. You stare at the place where it vanished. Not in longing, not in hope, just in habit. The light fades, the darkness returns, and with it, the small, quiet world you've grown used to, the scrape of your heel against the stone, the sound of your own breath, the way your heartbeat settles like a stone dropped in water. You whisper something, not a prayer, not even a word, just a sound, a throat noise, low, meaningless, just to see if it echoes. It doesn't. The fire is gone. The mountain is quiet. You're still alone. And somehow, that feels more honest than any vision ever did. Then, a whisper. And you know, it doesn't come with light, doesn't shake the cave, doesn't warm your bones or fill the sky. It's smaller than all of that. It slips through the air like breath, so soft you almost miss it. Just a hush in the stillness. A crack between silences. No voice. No words. Just presence. And suddenly, you're undone. Because he wasn't in the fury. He wasn't in the wind, or the fire, or the quake. He was in the fracture, in the nothing, in the space. You stopped watching. And the knowing comes too fast to hold. You're not even sure what's being said, if anything is being said at all. But you know. Like a chord inside you finally resolves. Like something you didn't know was clenched, lets go. Your mouth falls open. No sound comes out. And for the first time in days, weeks, years, you weep. But this time you're listening. The tears come quiet. No heaving, no shouting. Just salt and silence, slipping down skin too dry to catch them. You don't wipe them away. You let them fall. Because something is here, something so still it didn't need spectacle. So near it didn't need to raise its voice. You lower your head, not in shame, in reverence, in relief. Because all the fury, all the fire, all the noise, you thought they were signs of God's presence, but they were distractions. You thought he left you. You thought he forgot. But he was waiting. In the pause, in the breath, in the small space you made when you finally stopped demanding answers. You press your forehead to the stone floor. It's still warm from the fire, but now it feels different. Now it feels alive. You feel his nearness in the bones of the mountain, in the hush between your heartbeats, In the space where pain lived and prophecy used to echo, he never wanted your strength. He never needed your thunder. He just wanted you, open. And now, finally, you are. You don't ask questions, not now. You don't need to. The answer isn't in the fire or the sky or the trembling of the earth. The answer is in the fact that he spoke, that he waited until you were quiet enough to hear it, that he came, not in grandeur, but in grief, in gentleness, in the still small voice, and somehow that is enough. You sit up slowly, wiping your face with the edge of your sleeve. You look toward the mouth of the cave. The world outside hasn't changed. The rocks are still shattered. The dust still stings. The silence still holds. But now, it holds him, and you are not alone.